What's good, guys? It's DL Saint. There's a breaking news story out there. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar or not, or have heard anything, but apparently, a American Airlines regional jet has collided with an Army Blackhawk helicopter. It appears that both aircraft uh, did, in fact, collide and crash. There's a search and rescue mission ongoing in the Potomac River. There are reports that survivors are being found and rescued from the river. Um, I was just kind of hanging out in the living room. I was watching some content out there on YouTube, and I just kind of jumped on a live feed to see what's going on. So, yeah, that seems to be the breaking news event. You guys know I'm a retired air traffic controller. So this is, I know a little bit about this world, although I've never worked on the East Coast, at least the Northeast. I haven't worked on the Northeast. So, the job of air traffic controllers, the number one responsibility, number one job of air traffic controller is to prevent collisions in the system. Whenever there is a collision in the system, that is definitely a bad thing. Um, Details are real sketchy, guys, and it's going to be a while, probably, days, if not weeks, before we get some decent information. It'll be months before they determine exactly what happened. Of course, they're going to have to recover the black boxes from both aircraft. They're going to listen to all of the transmissions. They're going to listen to every controller that the aircraft talked to. They're going to track everything back to the beginning. So wherever that military Black Hawk began that flight, wherever this American Airlines regional jet began the flight, which I think was in Wichita, the FAA and the NTSB are going to go back and they're going to look at every moment of that flight, listen to every transmission, and just so you know, whenever there's an incident like this and it happens in what's known as controlled airspace, yeah, it's going to be responsibility there. People are going to have to own up to their end of it. They're going to look at everything as far as the air traffic controllers are concerned. Like, was the tower involved? Obviously, they would have been. At what point? What's their responsibility? The controller who was actually talking to the aircraft, how many controllers were there? Were more than one? Was it just one? What are the procedures? They're going to look at every single thing, everything. Brother Jay, you're right, man. A lot of people are going to have to answer for this. Um, it's going to boil down to, was this individual who just made a bad mistake, or was it a systems error? They're going to look at it. So there's live coverage going on right now. Let's listen in on what they have to say. This is ABC News Live.
And they thought everything was fine.
And Steve, the way you describe that, and I just want to let our viewers know we're waiting for a news conference from DC officials. That's going to happen in about, well, they say about 11:30. They're getting all the information they can together, and they're going to brief the media. Steve, and you say it's conjecture, and we get that at this point. But with your knowledge, I would trust your conjecture more than almost anyone I know. So just if that is the way it happened, this must happen a lot. You talk about all this traffic between helicopters and jets. The tower must talk to choppers like that often, I'm guessing, and saying, hey, do you see this? It's your obligation to be around it. What do you think went wrong here?
I think that the helicopter thought they were in the right. They thought they were doing everything right. They were below 200 feet. They were talking to the tower. They thought they had the traffic in sight. They thought they had the interval as the regional jet was crossing their nose from left to right as it was landing on runway 33. So everybody in the helicopter thought they were in the right. It may have been that helicopter crew misidentified who their traffic was. They may have picked a point of light or an airplane that was not the regional jet that was on final. And in their minds, they're saying, okay, we got it. It's here, when actually it was here. And so it's not hard. It's, humans are fallible. I made more.
Okay, it sounds to me that what he's talking about sounds very procedural to me. He's not lying. What he says is true. I don't know who this guy is or what his background is in aviation. I don't know if he's a pilot. I don't know. Maybe he's a former air traffic controller. I don't know anything about it. But what he's talking about does make sense. When in the air traffic control world, um, it's called passing traffic. So when you have two targets that are converging, they're coming to each other, their paths are going to cross. There are ways that you can protect for that, separate for that. And this is what all the training and experience is about. So what he's talking about is, hey, helicopter, there's an airplane that's going to be in the way, basically. And I'm not using air traffic control talk. I just want you guys to understand what's going on. So the air traffic controller would call traffic to the helicopter. So let me back it up even further. I would guess, and again, I don't know anything, guys. I'm just sitting down here. I've heard a few moments there, and I'm just gonna speculate. I know people say you shouldn't speculate, but I'm just gonna speculate and kind of react to what that guy was just saying. You got an aircraft that's transitioning through a certain area or a sector, whatever you want to call it, and that aircraft is talking to someone in the tower. That aircraft is looking for traffic advisories, right? Or that aircraft is going to land at the same airport. And maybe you got converging runways, you have all this other kind of stuff, right? You want that airplane or that helicopter, that aircraft to see any other aircraft that are out there. There's going to be a factor. So you're going to do what we call a traffic call. We're going to call traffic. So, all right. I'll definitely get a little bit of lingo as well when we get into this. You'll do what's called a traffic call. So, what would what is that? That's you telling the crew that in that aircraft that there's going to be another aircraft out there that's going to get close to you, right? So, you don't just tell the one aircraft; you tell both. And it's one of the things when I would train air traffic controllers, and this is something that all air traffic controllers know: traffic for one is traffic for the other. So I'm not going to call traffic to you and not tell the other aircraft if I'm talking to them, right? So I'm going to make sure if I'm not talking to the other aircraft, that air traffic controller that's talking to the other craft is going to call the traffic as well. So what would it sound like? You could say, you got this Army helicopter out there. It could be Army 662, traffic 2:00, 2 miles southbound, 3,000 descending, regional jet, right? That's what it's going to sound like. And the crew of that helicopter, they're going to key up and they're going to say, looking. Or they're going to key up and say, traffic in sight. And then you would follow up with additional instructions if that's what you want to do. The main thing is the pilot you're talking to sees the other traffic. Okay. He sees them. Right? He's not going to fly into him. Now you want to give some instructions. Who's going to go first? Who's going to go second? What's going to happen? Is that guy going to continue descending or is he going to stop? If the guy you calling traffic and it's going to, let's say the aircraft is descending, let's say this guy's out of 3,000 and he's descending, you're at 1,500. When you make that traffic call, you're going to tell that pilot what the aircraft is doing. Traffic, 1:00, 2 miles southbound, 3,000 descending to 2,500, port traffic in sight. The helicopter comes back, Roger, we see him, we have him in sight. And they're going to come back, hey, verify he's restricted above this, affirmative, traffic restricted above you, and then continue on whatever you're going to do. That's just an example of how that stuff works. And it's the same thing to the aircraft that's descending. Traffic 11:00, 2 miles northbound, helicopter 1,500. So so the pilots in the jet are going to look down and like, all right, we're looking for traffic in sight. Roger, traffic's restricted below you. Right. So that's one of the things you can do. I mean, and there's a million different scenarios, right, as to how this works out. When you have two aircraft that come together in such a close proximity, it appears to an airport or to runways, the situation changes a little bit. But again, it's the air traffic controller's job to prevent collisions in the system. There is video of the aircraft coming together, guys. I've seen that already. I've seen that in just a few minutes. Brother Vaughn's in the building. What's good, brother? Good to see you. Always a pleasure to see you, man. And so obviously something went wrong. The question becomes, is this a systems error or was this a controller error? Was this pilot error? Right? We won't know until all the information is gathered. And right now, the NTSB is involved. They're going to be gathering all sorts of information. On that team with the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, will be military folks. There's going to be FAA folks. There are going to be folks from the manufacturer of the different aircraft. So, you got the CRJ. So it's going to be people from, I guess, Bombardier. I think that's who makes that. You're going to have people there, whoever makes the Blackhawk, engineers. There's so many people involved. They're going to get so much data, and they're going to piece it all together. Yeah, and this story is crazy, man. Definitely, condolences goes out to those people who were lost. They don't know who was on board. Well, we take that back. They know who was on board both aircraft, but I don't believe they've released that information to the public. There hasn't been any numbers given as to how many people were injured, how many people were lost. None of that stuff has come out yet. But this is definitely bad for the air traffic control world, because this is the last thing you want to see. This is very rare. Let's start there. This is not something that happens every day. Flying is still the safest form of travel, but these things do happen. And you guys are going to hear so many stories. You guys are going to hear about controller fatigue, about not having enough air traffic controllers, about air traffic controllers retiring. You're going to hear about management not wanting to authorize overtime, working shorthanded, working controllers too long on position. You're going to hear so much stuff behind this. I promise you. You're going to hear it. They're going to go in. You're going to hear about these numbers. The air traffic controller union is definitely involved in this. So you're going to have NACA, the officials from the National Air Traffic Controllers Association involved in this. Management, from the FAA involved in this. There's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. They're going to get to the bottom of this, and they're going to figure out what's going on. So let's listen to a little bit. I'm definitely going to stay on until they do the press conference so we can get some information from that. But let's listen to a little bit what's going on here.
Plane are starting to gather at that airport. We did hear him say that the airport has a chaplain for just this very reason, and that the chaplain will be there to give comfort as best they can to the families here. Again, on your screen is this massive response on the banks of the Potomac, just outside of Washington, D.C., which is where DCA Reagan National Airport is. And just a couple of hours ago now, there was this regional jet coming from Wichita, Kansas, operated under American Airlines. Coming in, it was just about to land 150 or so feet above runway 33, and it collided with a Blackhawk helicopter. We do know 60 people, 60 passengers, and 4 crew members were on board that plane. And now we know from the Flight Attendants Association that 2 of the crew were flight attendants. So presumably you then have a pilot and a co-pilot. We're not sure about that, but we do know there were 2 flight attendants, 3 soldiers on board the Blackhawk. Now what we have is a situation where we know passengers have been pulled from the Potomac. We don't know what condition they are in. They've been brought to hospitals, but that
all right, they're talking about those who were hurt, involved in this. So yeah, this happens all the time. Brother Vaughn has a good question here. Like, how does a jet collide with a helicopter when neither one fly at the same altitude? Well, it's a good question. So when you're dealing with helicopters, not normally, a lot of times helicopters will use helipads. They'll have designated areas just for the helicopters to land on a helipad or whatever. But not every airport does it that way. Helicopters can make approaches, and often do make approaches to runways just like airplanes, right? So they're going to come in and land on the runway, especially your bigger helicopters. They're going to come in and they're going to land on the runways. And when you're dealing with military guys and stuff like that, those pilots want to land on a runway because they have to maintain certain currencies. You have to fly at night. You have to fly under certain conditions, like flying with your instruments versus flying visually. So you have like IFR, instrument rating, pilots, and VFR, visual flight rules. So a lot of times when military guys fly, especially flying to big airports, they want to get into the sequence and they want to land on the runways. A lot of times they're not familiar with the helipads unless it's an airport that they use a lot. An airport like Van Nuys, for instance, I worked at Van Nuys, was a busy airport in Southern California. Van Nuys has so many helicopters based there. Fire helicopters, police helicopters. They also have privately owned helicopters. They have flight schools that teach how to fly helicopters. Got all these helicopters flying in and around Van Nuys. They have special designated routes in and around that airport for those helicopters and those people who use those systems. And very rarely will a helicopter land on a runway. They at Van Nuys, they do it differently. Pilots who fly in and out of there every day, they understand the procedures, they understand where they're going to land. They land at so many different points around the airport. A lot of coordination, a lot of everything involved with that. So to answer your question, this helicopter, I believe, was making an approach to one of the runways, and the jet was also making an approach to one of the runways. There's multiple runways there. So you heard the person on the news, the newscaster was saying, "Oh, he's making an approach to runway 33." In air traffic control terms, it's 33. So he's making an approach to runway 33, which is is us all based on compass headings, right? So he's a 330. And I do believe the helicopter was making an approach to runway 03. So you got an approach to going like 330 and 030. So those paths are going to cross. Right? Just kind of, look at a compass, put a little line on a 330, then put a line on a 030, and you can see where those, you can see where the conflict can be. So that might have something to do with it. I've never, I'm just basing it on what dude just said. I don't have the airport diagram in front of me. I don't know what approaches they run. I've never worked that airport. I've never talked to anyone who worked that airport, but that's how they could come together. The helicopter is going to land just like the airplane is going to land. So it doesn't matter in the air traffic control world. When they're talking about casualties and stuff like that, of course, you're going to have your fair share of casualties. So again, to me, just with the very limited information that I have, this seems to me is going to be a system issue. I don't have any information, but based on the limited information that I'm gathering now, they're going to be pointing a finger at the air traffic controllers predominantly. Now they're going to look at the crew. If the pilot of the helicopter says, "I see the traffic, I see this jet out here," and that's now, depending on what the next instruction was, like that helicopter crew has to miss that jet. If it means slowing down, speeding up, whatever you got to do, we got to pass behind that jet, which I think it was reported, again, not verified, but it's reported that there's an air traffic transmission floating around the internet out there somewhere. They probably got it off of liveatc.gov, right? But it's live ATC. It might be .gov or .com, but the transmission is out there. I believe that the pilots of the helicopter was instructed to pass behind the regional jet. Now, the question is, if that's the case, how did they meet? Well, did he see the correct regional jet? Was the traffic call done in a timely manner, and was the traffic call correct? It's probably more than one regional jet out there. You guys been to airports, you know how many regional jets be flying around. It's nighttime. A lot of lights out there. You flying around at night over cities and whatnot, there's a ton of lights out there. So let's listen a little bit to what they're saying now.
What do you know at this hour, and what have you been able to piece together by the information that we have? We are waiting for a news conference to begin any minute.
Well, I should say what we think we know is that at least both crews were talking to air traffic control and to the Reagan controller, because there was apparently some sort of an order issued for the helicopter to follow the other aircraft. How these two came to be in exactly the same place at the same time is, of course, the question. This is one of the most heavily controlled pieces of airspace in the United States, probably in the world for that matter, because it's right adjacent to Washington National, or rather Washington itself. And we have a situation in which this could never supposedly occur because of the causative control. That's one of the things that the NTSB will be looking at almost immediately. Matter of fact, they're already, I'm sure, on the scene. The other problem here, as far as survival is concerned, is this is very reminiscent of the 12th of January in 1982, when a 737 failed to sustain flight after takeoff and hit the 14th Street Bridge. Most of the fatalities were drowning victims. Basically, they had been knocked out and they were underwater for too long. The 5 people who did survive were very arduous conditions, and the time of useful
Okay, so you heard there for a moment that he said the same thing I was saying. Allegedly, there is audio out there where the air traffic controller instructed the pilot of the helicopter to basically miss the jet, to fly past behind the jet. So yeah, this is an accident. There are accidents and incidents in the FAA, and they have different categories. I'm not going to get into all that, but this is 100% an accident. As far as who is to blame, trust me, there's gonna be plenty of blame to go around to everyone. Brother Marcus, was good, man? Good to see you, Devil Dogs. Pleasure, man. I hope you're having a good year. It's a pleasure to see you. Got Brother Mandrell in the building as well. What's good, fam? Um, and what I'm doing, they were saying that they were hoping to have a press conference around 11:30 Eastern time. We're just kind of waiting for that. So it's about 11:36 now. Um, These things do happen, but it's extremely rare. So it appears, guys, we don't have any information, but it appears that both aircraft were talking to air traffic control. Flying into that airspace, that is the most restrictive airspace on the planet. You must be talking to someone. You just can't go flying through that airspace anywhere near the nation's capital, anywhere near the Pentagon. You just cannot go flying through there and not talk to air traffic. You just can't. Right. So if you tried, if you want to, if you want to be a foreign pilot, you want to go out there and you want to test the government, go ahead and test them. You will have an F-18 on your tail in no time flat. So, and pilots know that. So it appears, again, like, we don't know, but it appears that both aircraft were talking to air traffic controller, and air traffic control being in the tower at that airport. Now, here's the thing. If there were multiple runways involved, or if there was some sort of transition thing, like the Army helicopter was doing something other than landing or anything like that, one aircraft might be talking to one air traffic controller and the other aircraft might be talking to another. I was telling you guys, like at Van Nuys, when Van Nuys is fully staffed with all the controllers in the tower, when I was working, there was a controller who simply he or she only talked to helicopters. They have their own frequency, and they had their own responsibilities, and they only spoke to helicopters. And then you have two other controllers who were talking to airplanes as well. They had parallel runways. They have parallel runways at Van Nuys. One air traffic controller will be working the airplanes in all of the airspace for one runway, and the other air traffic controller would be working the airplanes in the airspace for the other runway. So you basically split the traffic. All the guys on the west side of the airport is talking to one controller, and all the guys on the east side of the airport talking to another controller. That's Van Nuys. Every airport is different, right? So in that situation, in the tower cab, you can have three air traffic controllers with three separate frequencies talking to different aircraft. And why was Van Nuys like that? It was very, very busy. Brother Pablo, what's good, man? Good to see you, man. And they do show the collision. And they will be showing it some more. I'm pretty sure they'll show us some more. And it's at nighttime, it's lights. So you just see the lights on the aircraft out there. You see the city lights, and then you see a big flash, where you know that obviously that must have been where they hit. So right now, the focus obviously is going to be on search and rescue. They want to save as many people as possible because they were close to the ground. I mean, they were in the final phase of flight, which they were preparing to land both aircraft. It seems so they weren't up like thousands of feet in the air. They were close to the ground or over water. Yeah, you can see people surviving this. And the water is cold though. I mean, it's wintertime. So, they're going to get all those first responders out there, and they're going to do their best to pull everyone out that they can. They will salvage both aircraft. They're going to need the aircraft. They're going to be pulling the black boxes and that sort of thing. But guys, again, this doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. We got this is Sean in the building. Good to see you, bro. It's definitely a nightmare, man, for real. Prayers and for those who do pray, and thoughts and condolences to those families of those who were affected. Like, bro, this is major, especially in our business. There will be rules that they come up with after they do this investigation. Trust me when I tell you, they will, whatever the procedures were at Reagan Airport, prior to this happening, there's going to be more rules on the other side. When this is all over, there are going to be more rules. There are going to be more regulations. It might boil down to, okay, they're not allowed to have less than X amount of controllers in the tower at a certain time during these times. There's going to be rules. People are going to come try to do their best to come up with stuff. Let's listen in and see what's going on now.
To TikTok, describe to me what it is you saw and heard.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was just a normal Wednesday night here in Crystal City. Aside from some regular airport noise pollution, which we really hear 24/7, we have a direct line of sight to the airport. I hopped on Facebook and I looked in our local Arlington community group, and the first thing I saw was that there was a plane crash. Kind of had to rub my eyes at first because I hadn't heard anything. So I look out my window, and as you can see in the video here, just hundreds of EMS on the scene.
So they're talking to a woman who I guess works close and is, in the aviation world. I don't know, as a professional or maybe as an amateur, just having fun. Brother Michael, was good to see you. He's like, I'm no expert, but it's too much air and sky for a collision. That's true when you're out going someplace. This is a big sky theory. That's what they call it in air traffic lingo, big sky theory. But hey, when you're trying to land, just think of a funnel, bro, a big old funnel. And there's plenty of room at the top of the funnel. But when you get down towards the end of the funnel where the runway is, it ain't a lot of room, bro. And it's a lot of room for air, right? And again, this is why we have air traffic controllers. This is why, like when you're in that funnel, that's where things are going to happen. When you're climbing, when you're descending, when you're turning left or right, that's when things tend to happen. Once you get to the altitude that you want to be at and you're just flying, yeah, big sky, man. There's plenty of sky out there, man. People doing their thing, whatever. Right. And once you get on the ground and you start taxiing around to go to your parking spot, yeah, man, you're good, man. Big tarmac, you're good to go. Although things do tend to happen on the ground as well. But when you're in that funnel, bro, the closer you get to the bottom of the funnel, right, whether you're landing or departing, that's where things tend to happen. And when you're departing, it's the opposite way. You start at the tight end of the funnel, then it opens up as you're climbing out, getting to your altitude. Bro, it is tough when you're trying to land, right? It is tough. And this is why air traffic controllers get paid so well. This is their job. Their job is to prevent collisions in the system. So whenever you have a situation where there's some sort of accident where planes come together, bro, it's gonna, that's not supposed to happen at all, ever. And even though air traffic controllers get it right, the vast majority of the time, the high 90 percentile, they're going to fix this, bro. They're going to look at this and they're going to come up with ways to keep this from happening again. I've seen stories and incidents that have occurred where planes have hit each other and didn't even fall out the sky. There was a guy collided with two airplanes. I think it was a Cherokee and a Cessna, if I'm not mistaken. And there were tire marks on the wing of one of the airplanes. And it was, that one was 100% pilot error. The tape was embarrassing to listen to. Like the controller was completely overwhelmed and didn't know what was going on. He was, he didn't have the picture. That's what we call it in the world. He completely lost the flick. He lost the picture. And one of the pilots said it on a radio transmission. I think that guy hit me, but both airplanes went and landed without incident. There was damage done to both aircraft. And so that's lets you know that you can come together and still walk away from it. But when you're dealing with a helicopter, rotary wing, whenever they hit something, bro, it's all bad. They don't have wings. It's not like they can, you can be in an airplane, something happens to your engine, you can just glide in. But if something happens to your wing, I've seen cases in the FAA where a King Air was hit by a Gulfstream jet. So you had a Gulfstream landing, you had a King Air underneath him. The Gulfstream didn't know he was there, and the Gulfstream came down and hit the top of the King Air, knocked off all of his antennas, took out all of his radio communication, ruffled the airplane, put a big hole in the wing, and that airplane landed. And all on board was saved, and that Gulfstream eventually landed. And all this stuff is out there. There's reports on all that. There's so many instances out there where planes come together and they survive. Let's listen a little bit. We're just waiting for this press conference supposed to happen at 11:30. It's now 11:45. Well, let's just keep listening.
There is some signs of survivors and thanking, the first responders. But I'll just tell you that these types of incidents don't happen a lot in America. And as a member of the Homeland Security Committee, we do a lot of work to deconflict and to make sure that we understand crashes and that we're better and safer after them, which is why we haven't seen anything like this in a very long time.
And Representative, we heard from Homeland Security this evening. We've heard from the Transportation Secretary, from the White House. We've heard from the FBI, because obviously this is Washington, D.C. And as you mentioned, being a member of the House Committee on Homeland Security, you've obviously got to secure the nation's capital. It doesn't appear right now that any of those agencies are looking into anything that would be anywhere near foul play. We've heard that both of these aircraft, the regional jet coming in from Wichita, Kansas, and the Blackhawk helicopter it seems to be in contact with the tower, and this appears at the moment to be an horrific accident and tragedy. But you flying in, you come in, you get off the plane, and you go on with your life. And millions of Americans do that every single day. This is going to shatter the confidence for some people in this country when it comes to air travel.
I mean, he's talking to an elected official. I don't know about that. I mean, people who are afraid to fly are afraid to fly, and they talk about accidents and stuff like that. The reason people are so afraid to fly is because accidents are so rare. And if the slightest thing goes wrong on a flight, the pilots land the airplane. Like, pilots can call an emergency for just about anything. If a pilot is like, hey, I need priority landing because there's a screw loose on this panel, the air traffic controller is gonna get them on the ground as soon as they possibly can. So, we see horrific car accidents every single day in America. It doesn't even make the news, right? You see people who lose their life in a car accident or riding their bicycle or whatever every single day. It doesn't even make the news. We had a guy here in Tampa a few days ago. It was a road rage incident. Started at a dollar store and ended up with the guy getting deleted by law enforcement with pew pews, because he was out there recklessly driving and he deleted one person and injured a whole bunch of other people, just running them over with the car. And then the police had to pit maneuver the guy on a major freeway. It was I-275, and that thing ended in gunfire. So I don't think that it's gonna stop people from traveling. John Madden was a person who was famously afraid of flying and all that. His whole life, he never flew, man. That's how the legend goes. He would take a bus from coast to coast just to, announce football games and stuff like that. But who's going to do that, bro? Like, if you live in Miami and you got to get to LA, you're not going to drive 3 days, like, hopped up on energy drinks. Right? You're not going to take a train. It's going to take you 5 days to get out there, bro. You ain't going to take a bus. It's going to take like a week and a half. Nah, man, you're getting on the plane. So, but you hate to see this stuff. And you heard what the congressman said. Like, when this happens, it's very rare. And when it's rare, because the FAA does exactly what I said, right? They're going to go in, they're going to look at this, and they're going to come up with new rules for that airport. They might even come up with some rules for like the whole system, for the national airspace system. But they're going to come up with some rules to try to keep that from happening again. Right. You're going to hear talk about, maybe the controller was subpar. Maybe the controller had poor training. Maybe the controller shouldn't have been there. You're going to hear that talk too. They're going to get to the bottom of that as well. There is an air traffic controller crisis going on right now. There's a shortage. They need air traffic controllers. And if they don't have enough, you have to pay the current controllers more and via overtime. And, there's always talk about budget. Let's listen to what this dude has to say.
First of all, your thoughts on this happening. We'll get into what the NTSB is doing right now, but this is virtually unheard of.
Yeah, this is very unusual. A mid-air collision like this, so close to the airport, it hasn't happened in a very long time.
Well, it's happened. It's happened since I've been in the agency.
You're the former director of aviation safety at the NTSB. I know there are so many factors involved here, but is, in your estimation, a crash like this survivable?
It depends. We need more information. Early on like this, there's a lot of rumor, a lot of people out there saying things. We need more facts, and that we don't have now. We don't have right yet. Very difficult. Clearly, the altitude, the bank angles I'm hearing of, survival will be difficult. The very cold water doesn't improve matters. It's dark night. We hope for survivors, but we'll have to wait and see. We need a lot.
Yeah, the water's cold, dark nights, currents. But you can survive. They'll hopefully they'll pull people out. There were unconfirmed reports that that's already happened. They were pulling survivors out. Again, we'll have to wait and see early on. This guy, like, it seems like he is their aviation dude, former NTSB safety director or something like that. He made that comment where, like, this doesn't happen that often. It's very, very rare. I think what he meant to say is it's extremely rare with air carriers. So when you're looking at the jet, there's a regional jet for American Airlines. That's what's been reported, right? It's very rare that this sort of thing happens and it involves air carriers. Extremely rare. Like, actually hitting, there's so much equipment on board both aircraft. They have what's called a TCAS system. They have warnings inside the cockpit. It'll tell you about, it tells you, like, warning, traffic, pull up, pull up. It'll tell you to descend. It'll tell you to turn left. It'll tell you to turn right. So you have that as well. Why would the pilots, and why would the pilots not listen to that? You're talking to air traffic control. That's why. A lot of these air carriers, the pilots don't have a choice. If the plane tells them to pull up or do something, they have to do it. So that's going to be something they're going to look at. If in fact that turns out to be the case, they're going to look at, hey, did his TCAS system work? Right? Did he get what's called an RA? They call them Rays or RA. Like, did he get an RA? Did he get an alert? Why didn't the crew execute the alert? Same thing with the military guys. I believe they have the same equipment on board. So again, why wouldn't they do that? Well, they're talking to air traffic controllers. That's why. So it's very rare when something like this happens with air carriers. Now, when you're talking about just people with their own airplanes, non-air carrier aircraft, just, people out there flying around, this does happen. This does happen. You can just check the news. You have close calls all the time. Like I said, you have times when airplanes actually touch. It is what it is. You can look that stuff up on your own. You can see that this happens. It happens, but when you're around, like, the bigger airports, and you're around the air carriers, and you're in very restricted airspace, it's rare. It's very, very rare. I would say that a lot of mid-airs, when they do occur, they occur in the VFR environment. That's like the visual flight rules, when you're not talking to air traffic controllers, or you're only getting advisories from air traffic controllers, just basic advisory calls. And the controller can do that based on workload. If he sees something on his radar, or if he sees something, he'll tell you. He's talking to someone in your area, he'll tell you. But there's just so many variables out there that, the controllers will do what they can. But when you're in close to the airport like that, you're close to the runways, you're preparing to land, or you're preparing to depart, stuff like that. You're trying to take off. You don't want to take off and immediately there's something in the way. I did this over 20 years, and I would see things piloted take off, and as soon as they're airborne, the pilot starts doing these erratic maneuvers because their computer on board told them there was traffic, turn left, there's traffic, pull up. And they'll just do it. So, but it's very rare, man. It's definitely tragic. We're hoping to get this press conference. Let's listen in a little bit more and see what they're talking about.
This was a training flight, and of course, that's all we know. But we're being told it's a training flight. We're waiting for the officials there in the nation's capital to give the media a briefing. But we are slowly beginning to piece some of this information together. Does it change your perspective now that you know this was a training flight?
Yeah, Phil, a training flight can be a lot of things. A training flight can be a couple of seasoned aviators that need to get minimum amount of nighttime every month, and they were just out flying around at night, just getting their minimum hours. They could be, thousands of hours pilots and very highly trained pilots. But it also could be, having been an instructor in a couple types of aircraft, if it was a training flight where it was an instructor with a younger pilot, I can tell you that is a very stressful situation at night in a high traffic area, because you have to let the student make their own mistakes. You have to let the student learn, have the stick, and to understand what's going on and be able to learn from every situation. But you're responsible for that aircraft, and so you can't let the student go too far. So you're thinking not only about, is this student about to kill me, or is this student doing something that's going to get us in trouble, and I'm the person that's responsible. So if it was a true training flight where was a young pilot being instructed about how do you fly around National Airport at night over the water, lots of lights, lots of ATC communications, I can very easily see how there would be what's called task saturation in the cockpit. Again, total conjecture, but it all sort of depends on what the definition of training is in this case. If it was in fact somebody who was quite new to the aircraft, who hadn't flown in this area before, that instructor would be she would be working very hard to fly and allow the student to learn. So let's wait and see what happened, but I can see this go either way based on the definition of a training flight.
And he's absolutely right. So when you're looking at something like this, man, you're talking about, oh, it's a training flight. We're talking about the military helicopter. We're talking about the Blackhawk, right? So when you get, and I wish we had some former military aviators in the United States military, bro. Before they let you take one of Uncle Sam's Blackhawks out at night around a busy airport to do this or whatever, man, you're gonna have so many hours under your belt. It's more of, I think it's like he said, it was more of a flight for currency. Like it's a currency flight. Like, hey, we're gonna have to go out here. We're gonna get our nighttime in. Right, they probably had a phase of the flight where they were flying with their knives. They put their goggles on, their night vision stuff on. They do that for a part of the flight so they can get currency on that. You got both pilots up there, so they're both getting the currency. They're taking turns getting the currency under their belt. They got people in the back, probably you got the crew master, what they call it. I forget what they call them, but you got your maintenance people basically in the back, or you got some people just kind of flying around with them. Crew chief, you got your crew chief back there. Probably got the two door gunners back there, just going because it's the mission. So when you look at this, they're talking about training flight. Yeah, training flight. I think it probably was proficiency, right? I think it was proficiency and not training. I don't think they're going to take some inexperienced second lieutenant and put him or her in this situation and fly them in that situation where it's going to be very complex and this and that. Right. This is probably something that's the military does all the time. So it's not a big thing. So I don't know. I think it's more of a proficiency flight than a training flight. But again, obviously something went wrong. Now, was it on the crew of the helicopter pilot? Was it the Blackhawk crew? Was it the RJ crew? Was it the tower crew? These are the questions they're going to be asking. Trust me, they're listening to all the transmissions now. They're looking at the radar because you can pull that radar up right away. They're looking at the radar. They're looking at what's going on. They're listening. And this is what we're going to have to wait to see exactly what happened. They're going to piece it together. This investigation is going to be extremely thorough, and they're going to take their time. They want to get it right. There's so much. There's so much riding on this, bro, as far as who's at fault. Because this is all going to court, right? This is going to court. So who's going to be the one left holding the bag? Who's going to have to pay? Like if the government's at fault, then the government has to pay out all of the liability. Like it is what it is. So let's listen to what they're talking about now.
As it becomes available. They say for the remainder of the evening. We've also been told that the airport will be shut down until 5 a.m. Friday. That's what they're anticipating. Steve, a statement like that from the airport is pretty simple. It just gave us the facts. It didn't give us anything else. And it's really all the airport can do at this moment, right? I mean, we're looking at the other box here just below me on the screen, and that's where the news conference is going to happen. You see all the media have their microphones ready at that stand. We're just waiting for the officials to come and brief us. Sorry, say that name one more time, Lily. Lulu. Okay, the mayor of Wichita is on the line. Mayor, first of all,
pretty sure the mayor of Wichita doesn't have any information that they could put out at this time. So we're just waiting on that press conference. It's like some of the people are starting to come into the area. They're getting their preliminary information together. But let's listen to what the mayor has to say while we wait for his press conference.
For what has happened tonight, tell me what you know.
Well, this is truly tragic, and our entire community right now is praying, hoping for better news. But as a community, the entire city of Wichita, the city council members and the staff all throughout the city of Wichita are hoping that we have better news to come out of this. But all that we know right now is the information that American Airlines shared with me. And that is also public. The number of individuals, 60 passengers and 4 crew members, is the confirmed information. As for the individuals who were on board, we do not have any further information, and we are still waiting for that.
We're waiting for that information as well, Mayor. I'm wondering what you are going to do there in your community. What services are going to be available? We heard the airport director say earlier on tonight that there will be a chaplain at the airport. Obviously, families are gathering there.
So you can see she really doesn't have a lot of information at this time either. Looks like it was 65 souls on board, including crew on the RJ. And I think there was a report that there were 5 souls on board the Blackhawk. It had been the pilot, co-pilot, and 3 military personnel in the back. So that's what we're looking at. I just hope that there were survivors. I really hope that there were survivors there. It's not uncommon that people will be able to survive something like that. Yeah, bro. I'm with you on that, bro. I'm checking her out too. It's like, that's the mayor of Wichita right there. Who'd have thunk? Definitely wasn't expecting to see. I was expecting. I had another avatar in my head, so I was like, I'm like, huh. But yeah, guys. Again, for those people who are afraid to fly, don't worry yourself over this sort of thing. To me, to be afraid of flight is crazy, and you drive every single day. People are afraid to fly, but they won't hesitate to jump on their bicycle and go out here and drive around, especially in Central Florida. Man, I've seen some of the worst drivers in my life in Central Florida. I just get it. Just get over that. If you're afraid to fly, flying is way safer than driving. Driving is the safest form of travel. Obviously, something went wrong here. Yes, obviously something went wrong. Yes, they will get to the bottom of this. Yes, they will make this happen. They will make it better. Even if it means the air traffic controllers have to work 3 times as hard because of this, right? Let's say, for instance, that, and I'm just making this up. Let's talk about something else. Let's not talk about this incident. In my career, there were techniques that we would use as air traffic controllers to help us move everything faster. It was efficient. It was safe, but you had to know what you were doing. You had to follow the procedures, to the letter, but it worked. Then you get a controller who makes a mistake and they misuse the procedure. They don't do it properly. Then something goes wrong. So the FAA, instead of like, we're going to fix this controller or remove this controller, now what they'll do is they'll take away the procedure. Right? They'll take away the procedure, and then it makes it that much harder to move airplanes efficiently, to move them expeditiously. Right? It just makes it harder. So we might see something like that. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but there is definitely something that's going to come down the pipe. And this is 2 aircraft. It appears from the limited information that we have that it was 2 aircraft that were inbound to land. There are so many rules that govern that already. Nighttime, inbound to land, intersecting runways, intersecting approaches. Just to give you an example, in Miami has 4 runways. They have 8 left, 8 right, runway 9, and runway 12. So 8 left and 8 right, parallel. Runway 9 is basically 8. They were all 9s. They just changed them for. I'm not even gonna tell you the whole backstory, but basically, you got 3 parallel runways. You got 2 runways here. You got 1 runway over here, and then you have an intersecting runway in runway 12. Well, okay, that's a problem when airplanes are taking off and landing. You got airplanes landing, and they got us. There's going to be an intersection. If you don't do something, they could crash on the ground. And the same thing when they're taking off, they can crash once they take off, right? Because these runways intersect. But what people don't think about is on final approach. So you got runway 12 and you got runway 8 left and 8 right. Well, 8 left and 8 right are like this. Their final is kind of straight away. But that runway 12, that final is going to intersect runway 12, and it's going to intersect, 2-3 miles away from the airport. So you have to be thinking about that. Like, hey, I got this guy coming around, landing on 8 right, and here's his airplane descending, landing on runway 12. So he could be a factor for the dudes landing on runways 8 left and 8 right. They get close enough to where his computer might tell him to keep flying. There's danger, whatever, pull up, turn. But he's also a factor for the airplanes that are landing and departing on runway 9. So this is the job of air traffic control. This is what they get paid for, to fix this. And you fix this with skill, training, and procedures. That's how you do it. You might have a procedures like, all right, the guys on runway 12, they're going to want to land on runway 8 left or 8 right. They're going to want to land on 8 left. Let's say you got an airplane that's coming in. It's a business jet. He's coming in to land runway 12. He parks on that side of the airport right next to runway 8 left. So he's going to want to land on runway 8 left. So he's coming in on runway 12 and he's like, hey, tower, can I land on 8 left? And then the tower could say, yeah, you can land on runway 8 left. I'm not using all of the air traffic control terms and all that kind of stuff, but let's say that all the boxes are checked. He's cool. There's nothing in the way. Yes, he can land on runway 8 left. The pilot makes the turn, lines up for runway 8 left, lands, gets off. Boom. He's right. That's right where he wants to park. He, drop his, millionaire boss off and everything's everything. If he lands on 12, he has to taxi all the way back through the airport to get to the side of the airport he wants to go to. So they're going to want that. It's the air traffic controller's job to make that happen. Well, let's say a controller messed it up one day. Hey, can I have runway 8 left? We're on 12. Yeah, you can have runway 8 left. He turns to land on runway 8 left, and then he forgets, oh, I had an airplane already on 8 left. Or I had an airplane on 8 right. You want to get from runway 12 to 8 left, but there's an airplane already trying to land on 8 right, and now you got this, right? Some controller screwed it up. All right, no one else is allowed to take the airplane off of runway 12 and move them to any other runways on the airport. That's a new rule. Makes it harder. Now, whose fault was it? That was the controller. He made a mistake. Can we train this controller? Can we make them better? What are we going to do here? Nope. We're just going to make everyone else as bad as this controller, as opposed to making this controller as good as everyone else. And these are just my take on the guys. I'm retired. I can say this. They can't come after me. But this is what I'm talking about. They're going to look at the procedure and they're going to see what can we do to prevent something like this ever occurring again. That's what the NTSB is going to be looking at. The FAA is really going to drill down on that, because the NTSB is going to say, hey, FAA, what steps have you taken to keep this from happening in the future? And they want to come back. The FAA is going to come back and say, we have this brand new procedure that will make sure that this will never, ever, 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 ever happen again. When in fact, it's not true. If you got if the problem is you have poor training, you have poorly trained controllers, and they don't have the proper help, then it's going to happen. I don't care what the rules are. I don't care how many more procedures you make. They're going to screw it up. Right? They're going to screw it up. So it's and brother, like, that's way too much responsibility for me. Hey, man, I did it for 20 plus years, bro. It is a lot of responsibility. When you do everything right, things can still go sideways, bro. I can remember one day I wasn't even working the airplanes. I wasn't talking to the airplanes. I was in charge. And I'm sitting there watching the controllers work the airplanes. We had a pilot who screwed up so bad, man. He landed his airplane so hard that he broke the airplane. And then he managed to get the airplane back in the air again. And, we're trying to figure out what he's going to do. Like, hey, the airplane was messed up. We could see the airplane was messed up from the tower. Like, it was really bad, a lot of damage. And the guy just fell out of the sky. He was talking to us. We were asking, what do you want to do? It looked like he turned his airplane. So once he did that, the airplane just fell out of the sky, bro. He didn't survive. And now that was not our fault. And that guy had a history with some stuff going on with that dude. There was stuff going on with his pilot license. It was a whole bunch of stuff. Don't want to get into the weeds on that. But they tried to make more procedures for us. Like, bro, we didn't do anything. Like, how you going to make us come up with a procedure for a bad pilot? Like, we didn't do anything. That was one of the few times, like, bro, we really didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing on us. We were almost perfect, bro. We were like 97.3 out of 100 on that one. We were like so clean on that one. It's like, bro, what do you mean? There's nothing you can make us do. Like, we're going to make sure that we have that position open for 8 hours out of the day. Like, okay, you're going to pay for that? Because we're going to need more controllers to do that. We have no problem opening it up. But we're going to have to pay more control. You're going to have to pay more money. And of course, that went away. So just to give you an idea, man, let's go back to the news and see what they're talking about.
Different agencies. When you talk about learning something from this, and it's a good thing, obviously, that the last major crash that we can talk about, as you mentioned, was 2009. There's been a stretch where
notice
we
he
have not had to
said
deal with
major
anything like that in this nation. But how do you learn from this? And how do we move on as a nation? Obviously, people are going to be, frightened in the aftermath of this, because if you fly, yes, it's safe, but obviously things are out of your control when you're in a plane. But how do we learn from this technically? What will happen?
Well, we learn from it by doing something that I think we have learned to take the ATSB and nurture that organization.
I don't think that's me, guys.
In great detail what happened, so we can attack each and every one of the links.
Yeah, that wasn't me, guys. That's them.
That's one of the major things that we have to keep in mind always. Air traffic is now so safe, in fact, that we launch and recover about 100,000 flights every day over the earth, and very seldom does anything go wrong. So it's not just a matter of semantics or a matter of just a few statistics. This really is a lot safer than just driving to the airport, and this will make it safer, even though we've had a tragedy here tonight, and certainly my heart bleeds for everybody who's lost a loved one on this. But we will find out what happened, and we will make it not happen again. That's about the most simple way I can put it.
You hear that part where you say, we're going to find out what happened and we're going to make it not happen again? That's what I'm talking about. Procedures. They're going to come up with a procedure that they believe is going to make it not happen again. It's impossible to not make it happen again. And he said, 100,000 flights, man, it's in the millions. It's in the millions, guys. It's in the millions. I mean, bro, I could be a little airport like Van Nuys would run 100,000 flights in a day. At least back in the heyday, we were doing it. Now, Van Nuys will run the traffic count at Van Nuys. Oh man, when I left back in 2019, the traffic count at Van Nuys was probably, gosh, man, I can't remember. But Van Nuys was running thousands and thousands of flights a day out of a small airport you've never heard of. What do you think they're running out of LA? What do you think they're running out of Chicago, Atlanta, Miami, DC? Just think about it. Dallas, like Atlanta. What do you think they're running out of there? They run millions of flights each. You know what I mean? Like Miami, I think we have to look that up before it's over. But as far as traffic count goes, like he's way off, bro. It's hundreds of thousands. No, man, it's millions of safe flights every single day in the national airspace system, the NAS. Yeah, bro. Yeah, I couldn't do what you. I couldn't be in that room, man. Like you surgical technician, bro. I couldn't be in that room. I could do the air traffic control thing, but I wouldn't want to be in that room, bro, with people on the table and the stuff you must have seen and heard. And I don't want to do that. Let's get back into the news coverage. And again, I'm trying to hold on. I'm trying to wait to see if they do this press conference. I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait up for the press conference, but we'll see.
And Aaron is reporting that out of the bodies that they have been able to take out of the river, no one has been alive.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and these airlines, they train for these moments. They set up a crisis hotline for family members and friends and loved ones to call in these events to try to get information on their loved ones, information on what may have happened, and then, of course, meeting points. And these airlines have certain employees that will handle and be dedicated to these families to make sure that they have everything that they need over the course of the coming hours, the coming days, and even the coming months. And we're talking everything from emotional support, therapy, to hotel rooms and transportation to the scene. And that is all beginning to unfold. They will create a victims center, a family center here in the DC area in the coming hours. That's being put together right now. The CEO of American Airlines will likely be here in the coming hours. They have other teams moving into place right now to be able to support everyone who has been impacted by this.
And Sam, I've got a statement here from DC Mayor Muriel Bowser. She says, as we continue to pray for all involved, we're grateful for the efforts of our first responders during this tragic event. There'll be a press conference tonight at 12:30. It's actually this morning at 12:30, and it will be live on this account, which is, obviously she's posting that on, I think it's on X. But so what are we expecting to hear? Do you know who we're going to hear from at this news conference?
We are likely going to hear from the mayor and some of the first responders, the responding agencies. There are a number of agencies from across.
Yeah, I think I can last another 15 minutes and listen to that press conference, because I'm curious to ask what went down and who was trying to land and what not. Mandrill saying planes go down all the time. That's because you Green Beret, bro. Airplanes you on, them helicopters you on tend to have bullet holes in them. So yeah, they go down all the time. And look, Mandrill's still here to tell the tale. Planes, aircraft do go down, man. It's their machines fail, but it's very rare when you have this type of event with, at this type of airport. Military pilots, I'm telling you, some of the best pilots on the planet. United States military, man, they produce some of the best pilots on the planet. So I'm really curious to know what went down. Is it possible that the military crew, the Blackhawk crew, had the wrong aircraft in sight? Possible. Is it, did the air traffic controller make a mistake on the traffic call and have them looking the wrong way? Don't know, bro. But I'm curious to hear what they have to say. I think this initial press conference is going to be very light on the facts, because they don't have many facts. They're going to talk about where the aircraft came from, what time they took off from, departing airports. How many people were on board? They'll probably talk about, where did this accident occur? How far from the airport and all that. They might talk about radio transmissions, maybe. But that's pretty much all. And then they'll talk about their rescue efforts and stuff like that. And I think that's it. They're not going to really be able to talk about much else, because they don't have much else really to talk about. But they'll be able to tell you that this is the aircraft, this is where they departed from, this is who they spoke to. They'll say they're going to have the flight plans for both aircraft. They could talk about who was in the tower, what positions were open, what time things happened. They'll probably mention radio transmissions, but I doubt if they actually play them, but they will mention them, stuff like that. They might talk about crew. They might talk about experience level. I doubt that. I think that'll come out later. But yeah, man, this is crazy. Let me see. They do have there is video of the aircraft coming together. See if I can't find it. And they were talking about these sort of things doesn't happen. You had a 737 had a violent accident in Korea not that long ago, where it slid off the runway into some sort of barrier. And that was maybe a month or so ago, not that long ago. So I'm looking to see if I can find I can't find. My bad, guys. I'm trying to find some footage that I know is floating around out there, and I can't seem to find it. But it's out there, guys. And I don't. It kind of looks like fireworks, bro. It looks like a Roman candle or something like that. Like that's just what it looks like. But I can't seem to find it. This is crazy. And again, I'm just killing some time, guys. If you just join us, appreciate it. Just killing some time until the press conference. Once I'm gonna listen to the press conference, and then I'm gonna lay it down myself for the night. But again, this is tragic, especially, man. I've been in that world, bro. I'm an air traffic controller. I mean, this is the air traffic controller's worst nightmare. There are controllers that don't bounce back from this. There are controllers they'll leave. They'll resign. They can't handle it. Can't blame them. You know, you can't blame them. You're sitting there, you don't know what they heard. You don't know if that radio was live. You just don't know what they heard. Here it is right here. Here it is. You can see right here that the small light's probably the helicopter. That's the regional jet, and that's the collision right there. That's the collision right there. So that is so rare, guys. To be in that position, that is so rare. Let's listen to what they were saying.
Get so close to each other.
Safest time for aviation in American history. We are the gold standard around the world.
He's not lying.
And yes, this has been an incredibly long streak that ended tonight. 2009 was the last major U.S. airline crash. It was Colgan Air, a Continental Connection flight out of Newark going to Buffalo that crashed there. And there's been one other death in 2018 when a woman was partially sucked out of a Southwest Airlines plane as it went over Pennsylvania. But since then, because of our investigations, because of everything we've learned from the NTSB and the FAA, from previous incidents, we've been able to make things safer. But tonight, as I said, that ended in some of the most congested and complicated airspace in the country.
I want to bring in Aaron Katersky, who's here in New York with me. Aaron, everything that we know about this right now is that this was an horrific accident. We've heard from the FBI, right?
The FBI says it is there from the Washington field office, at this point only in a support role. And that tells us that at this point, there does not appear to be any evidence of criminality or nefariousness, that this was indeed a tragic accident. We've had to listen to some air traffic control audio. The pilots aboard the Blackhawk helicopter appear to acknowledge the flight path, the final approach of the American Airlines Flight 5342 from Wichita. But for some reason, whether it was disorientation or some other reason that the NTSB will determine, the collision occurred. There's a real question about whether that kind of collision at about, 150 or so feet is survivable, as both aircraft fell into the water. Right now, there is search and rescue operations underway. So far, everyone who has been pulled from the water, we're told, has not survived. That does not mean there won't be. They've called for some extraction tools. They're still working feverishly, Phil.
All right, I want to bring Steve Ganyard back into the conversation. Steve, Aaron makes a point. This is about 150 feet over the runway. There was, and in the video that we have seen, it's at a distance, a pretty good distance, and that fireball is big. So this collision just over the runway and over the water, there was an enormous explosion. Both aircraft go into the water. It's going to be very difficult, but they are still.
And there were initial reports that they were pulling survivors from the water. This is why when these things happen, this is why you got to be patient and wait. There were people like, oh, this is, they get these reports and they'll, so unconfirmed, they'll say that kind of thing. So, but I mean, it is what it is, man. There are people who, is it possible to survive this sort of thing? Yes, but at 100 feet above the deck, above the ground, you're landing in water. The helicopter crash, you're just not getting any lift, man. Once you go down, it's pretty bad. But I know helicopter pilots who have been in situations like this and they've managed to survive. It's just horrific to see this sort of thing. We got G Complex in the building. What's good, man? Yeah, man, I just jumped on. I saw it and I was like, let me just go ahead and put my little 2 cents in. I'm just waiting for another 6 minutes. They're going to have a press conference. But let's listen to a little bit more what they're talking about here. And when the guy was talking about no incidents, no major incidents, he was talking about with air carriers. He's talking about with like the big jets, the commercial airliners. He's talking about them. He's not talking about a guy who's out there flying around in his own Cirrus or Mooney or Baron, or a guy who's flying around in his own Honda jet, and he's not talking about that. But let's get back to it.
Feverishly trying to find people there in the water. We're waiting. It should be another 15 or so minutes before we hear from officials there in D.C. This is the video that you were talking about that we're looking at on the screen.
Yeah, Phil, if you see in that video, both of the aircraft are co-altitude and they're coming together. You can see them and how they're on a collision course there. And so the question is, why did those two aircraft get?
And then you want to talk about what could have happened there, bro. Just looking at that, like what could have happened there. I'll give you a scenario. Let me see if I can.
Over the runway,
All
there
right,
was,
I'll
and
give
in
you
the
a scenario.
video that we have seen, it's at a distance, a pretty good distance, and that fireball is.
So they're going to show this thing, bro, and I'll just give you a possible scenario. I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just giving you a scenario. You have, it's nighttime. You got the Blackhawk pilot. You know, you can clearly see the RJ. That's the big flash of light there. I think they had another one. You see this plane taking off. That could be an RJ. You got an airplane taking off. That could be the RJ. That could be a RJ. That could be a regional jet. It's nighttime. It's really hard to tell what's what. You just see lights, really. Especially when you're out there, you're flying around. It'd be really difficult if you don't know what you're looking for. You have a regional jet landing, right? If these are the same type aircraft, could there be some confusion? It could be some confusion. The Blackhawk crew is being told about a regional jet, and they're looking at this airplane on the runway. Do you have the regional jet in sight? Oh, yeah, I seen him. He's on the roll. Maybe the controller didn't hear that part. What do you mean on the roll? Now, the traffic you're looking for is on final. Final is the final approach. So you can have a scenario, you have to listen to the tapes. You can have a scenario where the crew of the helicopter saw the wrong aircraft. You're like, oh, yeah, we see him. We'll pass behind him. And they didn't see the other aircraft until it was too late. That's a possibility, guys. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just simply saying that's a possibility. These are the kind of things. This is why you have to have the investigation. Who knows what was going on? But trust me, pilots don't want to fly into stuff. Right? And I don't know what type of aircraft that was. That could have been a 737, could have been a 777, could have been a 747 taking off. I don't know. But when you do, again, at nighttime with these lights, bro, it's really hard. Right? Yeah. See, and even Chris, like, yeah, I heard that theory. It's possible. You have to hear the tape. So if that's the case, who would be responsible for something like that, right? Let's say that that's what happened here. Let's say that, hey, the crew of the helicopter crew didn't have the correct aircraft in sight. Who's at fault for that? Air traffic controllers. The air traffic controller has to make sure that you see the correct traffic. Remember, it's the air traffic controller's job to prevent collisions in the system. So you need to be calling traffic miles away. You need to be following up on that traffic. Hey, do you still have the RJ in sight? 12 o'clock, mile and a half. You might have to tell the helicopter, slow down, reduce your speed, reduce speed, 20 knots, slow down. You might want to break him out. I don't believe you see that guy. I can't tell you how many times I've had to talk to airplanes. I'm like, calling traffic. Like, yeah, we see him. And I just pull the guy out like, nah, you don't see him. And as soon as you pull him out, they'll key up and say, oh, sorry about that, tower. We see the guy now. Yeah, I know you see him now, but bro, I had to get you out of there, man. We're going to get you back in line. We're going to try this again. Air traffic controllers need to do that. That's part of the job. So if in fact that's the case, bro, they're gonna put it on ATC. Yeah, he's like, yeah. So that's you've heard that, like that theory. Yeah, brother G Complex. He's like, yeah. He's like, he's heard it from a couple different interviewers. Different pilots on news channels are saying that there was confusion with the aircraft in the air versus the aircraft taking off. And you definitely want to go behind and you can see how that can happen. The Blackhawk crew is like, yeah, we see the guy taking off. You want us to go behind that guy? Yeah, no problem. We're definitely behind him. Nah, it's a guy that's, it might be a guy that was like, 75 feet above you and behind you, right? And he's descending on top of you. Pass behind that traffic. Oh, we don't see that. How can we see what's behind us? So you'll have to wait and see what was on that, what transmissions were made, when the transmissions were made, all that stuff.
For a large aircraft as well as a takeoff point for helicopters. Now, we've been reporting from earlier tonight that there were no senior Army officials aboard, and we talked about the proximity to the Pentagon and the fact that this aircraft was an Army Blackhawk. When we look at the unit, it all makes sense why officials were saying that. The 12th Army Battalion specifically is tasked with flying VIP officials from the Army. Actually, they fly two kinds of aircraft. It's the dull gray Blackhawks that we're used to seeing in tactical situations. They also have another kind of Blackhawk, another kind of aircraft called a gold top. And this is more of a more formal looking helicopter. It has gold top, as the name implies, as well as the words U.S. Army on the sides. It's a fancier looking helicopter, and that is typically what is used by VIPs at the Pentagon, most specifically from the Army, to travel from point to point. So now I think it makes more sense why we were hearing from officials that, as far as they could understand, there was no senior VIPs from the Army. But now, unfortunately, as we know, there were 3 Army soldiers aboard, which would have been the crew, the pilot, the co-pilot, and the crew chief.
Louis Martinez, our Pentagon reporter. Louis, thank you.
That clears something up, because when I heard that report that there were 3 on board, I thought there was 3 additional soldiers. You see how the information slowly comes out. So you got the pilot, co-pilot, and the crew chief. That makes standard training flight. That makes sense. I thought there were 2 additional personnel on board: pilot, co-pilot, crew chief, and 2 additional soldiers. So it would have only been 3 persons on board the Blackhawk, and 64, I think, is the number for souls on board the RJ. Let's get back, listen to what they're talking about.
Obviously came together and obviously are down. And, again, I want to caution, and I think it's always important, but especially because it's been a long time since we've had a tragedy anywhere like this in the U.S. We're going to be looking, and the NTSB is going to be searching for every single contributing factor that happened. We call it a link in the causal chain. And it's very important that every one of those links, even though it doesn't sound like it was a big important thing, if you don't take care of it, understand it, and make sure that it's fixed throughout whatever system you're dealing with, it will show up as part of another causal chain. So there's a lot of detail here that's going to be necessary, not just finding out who flew in front of who or how this collision specifically occurred, although that is, of course, the prime focus right now.
John, I found it.
We got old Joe in the building. What's good, brother? Good to see you, man. Brother G Complex, he's like, it's my understanding that visibility right below and right above on any aircraft is extremely limited or non-existent. Yes, so you got positioning lights on every aircraft, right? Even on drones, right? So you have green, you have red, you have white underneath, you got yellow. I mean, you got position lights all over the aircraft, and the lights have to be on a certain so on the left side is red, on the right side is green. Like, you can look all this information up, and that gives you an idea, so you can determine which way the aircraft is moving, front and back, and all that. You got strobes out there. When they're getting close to the airport, they turn on their landing light, which is big, bright. That's what you were seeing in the playback. That's the landing lights that are on. Tons of light. It's easy to see the aircraft when they turn their lights on. When their lights are, and they're supposed to be on, those positioning lights supposed to be on all the time. But it's hard to see the actual aircraft. Like, I can see lights. I can see, okay, that's an airplane, but what type of airplane? During the daytime, yeah, with a glance, I'm like, oh, that's an Airbus. You know what I mean? That's a 737. That's a 777. You know what I mean? That's a, 7.6. That's a 7.5. I can look in the day you see the airplane, I can see exactly what it is. But at night, bro, you can hear it and you can see the lights. Right? That's it. And you can determine, like, oh, I see the green light. I see the red light. So I know which way it's going. Right, based on the light that I'm looking at, I could tell if he's coming at me or going away from me. But yeah, bro, it's tough.
For Congress and congressmen, senators to take a look at it before they start grandstanding. And this gentleman was not grandstanding. I don't mean to suggest that, but we have seen this too often in the past of things that end up in almost a committee type of hearing before they really understand what the accident was all about. So yeah, Congress, as he said, can be playing a very good supportive role, but not always are you going to find things in these accidents, however they occur, that require legislation. Sometimes it's just down to human factors, and that may be the case here.
Yeah, and the investigation is going to be multifaceted. So is our coverage. We're talking to John Nance about what happens now in the investigation. I have Aaron Katersky here with me at the news desk. And Aaron, I know you're following one of the most...
There are more than a dozen bodies that have been pulled from the water at this point. I was just on.
That's terrible news right there. That's terrible news. You know, we're waiting on this press conference. The reason it's delayed is they're probably trying to get their ducks in a row. But yeah, brother Brian, man, it is working at night is tough. So when you're in air traffic controller, right? When you first start training in the tower, the majority of your training, like your first 10, maybe 20 hours will be daytime. It's going to be the slow times of the day. They want to kind of, get you going, some little training wheel action. They don't want to put you in there when it's crazy busy. It's daytime. It's not that complex. And then once you kind of get a little bit, get your feet under you a little bit, then they want to bring you up and have you work at night. The airport during the day versus the airport at night from a air traffic controller's point of view, man, it's two different things, bro. Two different things entirely. It is really hard to see stuff out there at night. And if the lights aren't on, you got to tell aircraft to turn the lights on, you're looking for an airplane. Like, hey, man, I taxied out this Gulfstream, or hey, I taxied out, this Delta jet or Southwest jet or whatever. I'm looking for it. And then you ask them, say position, and they're like, yeah, we're at Delta 6. Right? We're holding short of Delta 6. Like, what? And Delta 6 will be like an intersection on the airport. We're holding short of Delta 6. Like, are your lights on? Like, you tell them, like, hey, man, are your lights on? They're like, oh, sorry about that. And they turn their lights on. And there he is. You see him now. Holy crap. The guy that's been taxied all the way around the airport, you never saw him. That's how important it is to have those lights on the airport at night, bro. And once they take off, they turn the lights off, man, forget about it. You can see them on radar, but you ain't seen them out that window. And if you're working at an airport with a big city, let's say you got maybe it's a hill or whatever, you got a big city with tons of lights, like Christmas time was the worst. Yeah, all these lights out there, man. Once the airplane dips down below a certain level, if it gets below the tree line or it gets below the ridge line, if you got that sort of thing, or you just don't find on a like down in Miami where it's flat and all these houses and all these lights and all the lights are on and city lights are on and cars are on the streets. You're out there looking like, man, where's that airplane? Because the lights mixed, they blend in. So you're out there looking, you look at the radar, you look out the window, you look at the radar. Like you have to get really good at judging where he should be based on the radar. And he should be 8 miles away. That's right around here. Okay. Oh, there he is. It's tough, guys. It's tough. And don't have a pilot who might be a little bit too high or a little bit too low because you're not even looking there. Like it's very precise where you're looking. It's like, oh my goodness. So yeah, man. Let's listen to a little bit what they're talking about here.
Be the last, this investigation just getting underway.
Yes, and it's a very important investigation. They're going to be fanning out in all directions, just as has been stated previously, as Steve said this a little bit ago, that and Tom Howder did too, about getting the records all secured as fast as you can, the cameras, the audio tracks from air traffic control, all of this. You don't make a decision. They don't make a decision about what's important and what's not important until they get way into the latter part of the investigation. Right now, it's just collection and, of course, continuing to monitor the attempts to find survivors.
I'm hearing that the president has posted on Truth Social. Is there anything you guys can tell me about that? Because I don't have it in front of me. Can you paraphrase it for me? Oh, no. John, hang on 1 second.
All right.
Is there anything on the Truth Social? Yeah. Trump says the airplane was on a perfect and routine line. Okay, so the president is asking on Truth Social why the tower didn't tell the helicopter what to do. That's interesting because we're talking to John Nance right now. We've talked to Steve Ganyard. It seems like there was, not that I'm answering the president's question, but it seems like there was conversation between the tower and the helicopter. And what we've heard is that the tower said to the helicopter, do you see the plane? Yes, it's your responsibility to keep distance from it. So there was conversation there, but that is what the president has posted on Truth Social. He's got a question and he asked it out loud. John, I'm wondering what you think of that question and what we know so far from what we've heard?
Well, I think that question is very similar to that you would get out of folks who really don't know a lot about aviation, and you wonder why this directive wasn't given or that directive wasn't given. It's far more complex than that, obviously, and it's just opening the door, saying what happened. And I think one of the things that we need to understand is that you've got a human factor.
So my bad, guys. I'm behind. I'm behind the flick here, doing my own little producing and I'm moving some stuff around. Um, the president. I don't know if you guys heard that, but it seems that the president is on Truth Social, making statements and saying things to the effect of, "Well, why didn't the controller? Why wasn't the plane talking to the controller? Whatever." It sounds like the president hasn't been properly briefed yet, and he can't because the information isn't all in yet. And the president's on Truth Social saying stuff, man. Man, don't do that, bro. That's just a bad look. Sit back and wait till you get the information. Wait for the press conference. Don't ask questions. I mean, it's if you don't know, you don't know. Like, what happened? I don't know. Why didn't he talk to why didn't the airplanes talk to the air traffic controllers? Like, they probably did, bro. We don't know yet. We're getting the information right now, but of course you want to brief the president. Hey, this is what happened. This is where it happened. We're telling you because it's in the DC area. I want you to know it's not there's no sort of threat level going on. There was nothing nefarious. It just looks like it was a bad accident. NTSB is on it. Our people are there. FBI is involved. Everyone, like Homeland Security, is involved. Everyone knows it was nothing negative, nothing bad. They're briefing him. I mean, they're briefing him. And the president, no president really knows what's going on with air traffic control unless they have a background in aviation. So maybe someone like a John McCain would know a little bit about air traffic control, and pilots don't know much about ATC. But they would understand, a pilot would understand, like, okay, he would have been talking to, an air traffic controller, probably a tower controller. How far from the runway? How high was he? 125 feet or so. Oh, wow. So he was preparing to land. A pilot would know those things. But someone like Trump, I mean, he's not part of that world. So I wouldn't expect him to know these things at all. I wouldn't expect him to know it at all. I mean, it's not a hit on Trump. But if I'm president of the United States, or if I'm the, head of a corporation or something, I'm not asking questions on Truth Social. When I got the best and brightest in the United States government, to include the military and private sector, I'm asking them. It's just, I think that's weird. But hey, everyone has their different techniques, man. They got their techniques. But you're definitely going to hear a lot of talk about air traffic controllers being overworked. You're going to hear a lot of talk about a shortage of air traffic controllers. Man, it's a really good chance that crew, the helicopter crew, was looking at the wrong aircraft. That's possible. That makes sense to me. But again, we won't know until we hear the transmissions. Let's listen to the news guys. Again, we're waiting for the press conference, guys. It's supposed to happen at 12:30. It's 12:43 now. I'm gonna give them another, I think about maybe 17 minutes or so, and then I'm gonna wrap it up. But I'm just trying to hold on for the press conference.
Because of that, the security of so many important buildings, be it at Washington, D.C. or over at the Pentagon, you have to thread the needle if you're a pilot coming in on an approach. But military pilots, helicopter pilots specifically, when they fly around the Pentagon, definitely they have to maintain the contact with local the towers, because it is a crowded airspace. It's not just military. Obviously, as I've just described, it's very crowded with civilian aircraft all the time.
We're getting word from the NTSB that their investigators are arriving on scene tonight, and they will continue to brief us with information as they get it. I want to bring Tom Howder back into the conversation, former director of aviation safety at the NTSB. Tom, you want to weigh in on this?
Well, there are military flight paths, helicopter routes around National Airport. They're marked, they're well known. The military guys know where they are. Yes, there is a lot of helicopter traffic in the area. There's helicopters coming from Andrews Air Force Base, from Davidson Army Airfield, from different places. But they do have planned routes to get in and out of the area. The question now is, which route was this helicopter on? What were the communications with this helicopter? And also, having lived in DC and flown in this environment, At night, there's a lot of lights out there. And so we get into human factors of the helicopter said, yes, I saw the airplane. Well, did he really see that one, or he did see another light out there that he misidentified? And so the NTSB is going to have to do visibility studies from both aircraft. What could they see?
Yeah, he's right about that. You're gonna have all like they're gonna be doing so many things. I can remember a night at when I was working. I think it was Van Nuys. It might have been Miami, but I think it was Van Nuys. It was Van Nuys. I was working Van Nuys one night, and they were shooting a music video or a movie or something just adjacent to the airport. You know, of course, they're making a movie. They got these big bright lights, right? These big old bright lights. We had to send representatives from the airport to go to that video shoot or whatever that was and tell them to turn the lights off. And what they did was they managed to they erected like a big cover and they basically covered it up so they could still get the light. But you know, because it's like, bro, you're confusing the aircraft out here. This is big bright light right next to the airport, man. Like that's you can't do that. You need special permission for that. And the airport, we told the airport guys, the airport authority was like, what? You know, like, yeah, do you see that big light over there? And they're right over there. You know what? I remember now. What they did was they made them bring that light down. They had permission to shoot, but they did not have permission to have a light that high. And you know, when you're making a movie or a video, the director is like, "Oh, give me a better light. Put the light way up." It's like, nah, bro, you can't do that, man. There's an airport right here. They got helicopters flying back and forth and all that. We had one film crew. I don't remember what studio. Right, they had some A-list, you know, people over there filming this movie. They called up to the tower. I don't know how they got our number. It was like, hey, could you limit the amount of helicopters that you have flying around so we can get this shot done? We said, absolutely not. But it just lets you know how bold they are. I do not believe, Brother Vaughn, that they're going to be seeking a fall guy. They're not going to. NTSB doesn't care. They don't care. What you will see on the FAA side, especially, you know, the FAA is going to try to. They're not going to destroy evidence or anything like that. But what the FAA is doing is trying to stay ahead of stuff. They already know who's at fault. If the controller made a mistake, they already know it. Whatever's going on, and you know, they're gonna get that information up. But what they're gonna do is send it off to the heads of the FAA, and then get that over to the NTSB. But no one's gonna be looking for a fall guy, so to speak. They're going to be looking at stuff and then they do whatever they do to determine what type of policy they think that they need to keep it from happening again. But I've never seen it when they're like, okay, we're going after this or this. The people who look for fall guys will be the attorneys. When the attorneys come, they're looking for a fall guy so they can pin responsibility on whoever has the deepest pockets, which in this case is going to be the FAA. And this is going to be in litigation for years. This is going to be in litigation for years. So, you know, you got 60, maybe as many as 67 people affected by this. Like they were on the two aircraft, you know, three people on the helicopter, like 64 people on the jet. They're gonna be looking for compensation. They're gonna be mad. They're gonna be looking, you know, what's going on here. And all those attorneys are going to come out and they're all going to be gunning for the biggest pockets, which is government, which is the FAA. Because even if they go after the Army, that's still government. So they're going to be going after them, and they're going to be gunning for American Airlines, but the big money is with the government. So you see that a lot. So let's see what's happening with this press conference.
1 o'clock in the morning. Alex, you're over there. What are you expecting to hear? Have they told you who's going to be briefing the media?
Hey, Phil. So, yeah, we are awaiting this press conference, but like most of things this evening, you know, it's been very, very fluid. And so it's slid. We do see law enforcement that's kind of congregated. Actually, let me orient you really quickly. We're in Terminal 1 right now. And so we have seen law enforcement kind of congregated in front of what is the Frontier check-in area, which is quite a ways away. It's a far enough away where you can have a private conversation out of earshot from the media. But we haven't gotten a lot of guidance in terms of who we're going to hear from or who all is represented. And I will tell you that, I mean, the emergency response to this incident has been massive. We have seen the law enforcement vehicles from multiple agencies, from D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, as well as federal authorities. Same thing with the first responder fire response. We saw those search boats and dive teams and dozens and dozens and dozens of fire trucks responding to this.
as you guys are watching this live feed, you see all the lights in the background. A few seconds ago, there was a helicopter moving through the shot. And if you weren't paying attention, you probably didn't see the helicopter flying through. He's flying through. You got this flash, this flickering light amongst all these other lights. It's really difficult to see. And he's like, well, come on, man, DL, this is on camera. I'm like, bro, it's hard to see in real life. Just looking out the window. Like, you can see the blue lights and the red lights. You know, you got the white lights out here. You can see that, you know, if you got some green and amber lights out there. But when you look up into the sky, right, when you look up, you know, it's like, bro, people get lost in the sauce. As soon as they get down below a certain altitude, and those lights will easily blend into what's going on behind them. I'll change the shot here, but easily blend into what's going on behind them. Now, when I was working at Miami at nighttime, all of the airplanes have to come in from over the water, right? Which is a nighttime procedures for noise. And, you know, they come in over the water and they depart over the water, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they came in over the water. Well, no, LAX does that too. At a certain point in time, they'll come in over the water. I'm thinking LA. So when you have something over the water, they're easy to see. There's no lights competing with it. It's not like there's a whole bunch of ships out there, right? Only things out there is maybe the moon. So when they come in, easy to see that. But when they come in over the city, you come in at LAX, you come in like the normal traffic flow over the city, bro, it's hard to see you with all those lights out there, man. Hard to see you. So, yeah, like, I know procedures have changed. It might be someone who's watching this. They're like, oh, they don't do that no more, man. I'm like, look, I was in Miami from 2009 until 2012. So, and I know for a fact that they changed things up, but their nighttime procedures are probably still the same because that's all based on noise. And they bring them, if I'm not mistaken, they bring them in over the water because that affects the least amount of people landing, you know, over the water like that on runway 26 left or right. Oh, no, did they land on 27? They land on, 27, 26 left and right, I believe. I can't remember. It's been a long time. But let's get back to the news coverage.
It's like 33 to 36 degrees. And obviously they're worried about not only hypothermia for anybody who survived the crash, but also for the brave first responders who are out there in the water as well. So it is very cold. Earlier on this evening, this regional jet left from Wichita, Kansas, carrying 64.
Man, it's hard to be a news broadcaster, bro. He has to sit there and just kill all his time. Everyone's doing the same thing, man. They're waiting 8 minutes until we're supposed to have this press conference. So everyone is waiting. Like, everyone is waiting, bro. And he has to just keep talking. For me, it's hard. I only get like 6 of y'all listening to me. But we're just waiting for this news conference, man. Again, there's been a horrible accident, a horrific accident. A helicopter and a regional jet has apparently crashed in the DC area. So, this is at the Reagan airport. This is what's being reported right now. The details are very sketchy. However, it's reported that there were 64 souls on board the regional jet, including the crew, and 3 souls on board the military aircraft, UH-60. According to reports, 3 personnel on board, military personnel on board that aircraft. There is video of the 2 aircraft apparently coming together. It looks like the wreckage fell into the Potomac River, where the river is very cold right now. They're saying it's the 36 degrees, the water temperature. This has been ongoing for a couple hours now. So if there were survivors, if they're still in that water, hypothermia becomes a serious concern. And there are reports now that they have recovered people from the river, but unfortunately, those people have not survived. Let's give a listen.
National Airport. I am joined by United States Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, United States Senator Jim Moran, Senator Roger Marshall, Jack Potter, the CEO of the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. We are here to brief you on the very tragic events of this evening, where we know a passenger plane coming to the airport here collided with a military helicopter. Our fire department, DC Fire and EMS, supported by fire departments and police departments from across the Washington metropolitan region, are executing a rescue operation in the Potomac River. They are working diligently in very dark and cold conditions, cold water, to execute this rescue operation. We have had the opportunity to be briefed by American Airlines officials. I'm told that American Airlines leadership is on the way to Washington as well. And officials are in the airport talking to families now. We do have a 1-800 number where families should contact us, should contact American Airlines for more information, and we will be providing that information shortly. I am going to turn to a number of officials to provide as much information as we can this evening, and we expect to have more frequent briefings at daylight. So with that, I'm going to turn to Secretary Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. I think for all of us, we want to extend our thoughts and prayers to those individuals who were impacted by the events tonight, their families. We know this is a very difficult time for all of them. I want to join the mayor and everyone here to extending our thank you to the first responders who, again, in very difficult situations and environments are out there searching and attempting to rescue. Tonight, I spoke with President Trump and his team in the Situation Room. I had a conversation with Secretary Pete Hegseth as well, and then with the Kansas delegation and the mayor and others in leadership, as well as Governor Youngkin from Virginia and Governor Kelly from Kansas. From the Department of Transportation and FAA's perspective, we are going to offer full support to those on the ground, to the mayor, but also to the NTSB, who is going to be conducting the investigation in this matter. We are going to provide all the support that's necessary. Mayor.
Thank you. So with that, I want to ask Chief John Johnley from DC Fire and EMS to provide an update.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Donnelly, Chief of DC Fire and EMS. This evening at 8:48, an alert was sounded, initiating a large regional response to a report of an aircraft crash on approach to the airport. This response includes first the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority's Fire Department, the District of Columbia Fire Department, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the U.S. Park Police to respond into the area and to sort that out. At 8:58, the first units arrived on the scene and found an aircraft in the water and began rescue operations. This incident has grown. There's currently about 300 responders working. We have boats from all throughout the region, police and fire boats. We have a mutual aid agreement in Washington, D.C., the National Capital Region Mutual Aid Agreement administered by the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, and we're all operating under that. We're operating under a unified command. Everybody's together. So we also have requested state police helicopters from Maryland, and the Coast Guard helicopter is working. So this is a state and federal response as well. U.S. Coast Guard's got some boats in the water as well. So it's a highly complex operation. The conditions out there are extremely rough for the responders. It's cold. They're dealing with relatively windy conditions. Wind is hard out on the river. So they're out there working. We're doing everything we can to keep them safe. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you. And Chief Bonnet from MWA.
I'm Rick Bonnet, Fire Chief of MWA Fire and Rescue. Our units, as Chief Donnelly already alluded to, at 2048, we received an alert from the FAA tower of an aircraft incident involving a commercial aircraft and a helicopter. Our units immediately responded and deployed 3 boats and immediately called for mutual aid resources. Again, as Chief Donnelly said, it's an active operation that's going to last many hours as we continue to work through recovery efforts and rescue operations. This will be ongoing for quite a while. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families and our communities, and we appreciate all DC's support to our agency and our federal partners.
So with that, I wanted to turn to the senators who are from Kansas who wanted to say a few words. First, Senator Moran, and then Senator Marshall.
Mayor, thank you, and Mr. Secretary, thank you, and to our first responders, thank you very much for all that's taking place here. I'm Jerry Moran. I'm a United States Senator from Kansas, and I chair the subcommittee in Commerce Committee on Aviation. So we have really a serious and sad circumstance that we want to be here to be helpful. And we're praying that our responders are safe and the folks who are on that flight are recovered. The circumstance I would describe is that I know that flight. I've flown it many times myself. I lobbied American Airlines to begin having a direct nonstop flight service to DCA. That flight has been in existence about a year. And it is certainly true that in Kansas and in Wichita in particular, we're going to know people who are on this flight, know their family members, know somebody. So this is a very personal circumstance as well as an official response. And again, we will do everything we can to make certain that we're supportive of the rescue efforts, and we'll do everything we can to make certain that our subcommittee and Congress is engaged in what needs to take place following the outcome of this evening and this month's kind of investigation. I've talked to NTSB, I've talked to the White House, I've talked to the Department of Defense, and I've talked to the CEO of American Airlines. And there is all of us pulling together for the best outcome possible. I'm honored to be here with my colleague, Senator Marshall, as we try to make certain that we care for those certainly back in Kansas that were on that flight. But it's a reminder that there are people here in Washington, D.C., in this region, in Virginia and Maryland, and many places else that fly to and from Kansas. And so we're...
All right. So, and you got the politicians talking. They're not really, they don't have much to say. He doesn't have any more information that was put out. Details are going to be sketchy until tomorrow, till they get this stuff. You just got the politicians talking. They're going to do their thing. It is what it is. It is what it is. A lot of times you get these situations where these people feel helpless. They want to do something. You're a senator. You want to do something. This is going to affect your constituents. It's going to affect, like your soil. So you want to come back and you want to say something, and that's what this is. Do they need to be a part of this briefing? No, they don't need to be a part of this briefing. They don't have any information that the officials there have. They don't have any more information. So they don't need to be there, but it is what it is. They want people to know that they're there, and they want their people to know that they're gonna, stay involved and get answers. So there you have it, guys. This is pretty rough. It was very, very bad. Again, prayers and thoughts goes out to those people who have suffered losses from this horrible accident. This is going to be in the news for a good little piece. They're going to want to know what happened. It happened in D.C., some of the most restrictive airspace on the planet. Air traffic control was definitely involved. There's no way they weren't involved. We're going to find out exactly what was going on with the helicopter. We're fairly certain that the RJ was on final approach to land. Was the helicopter on final approach to land to one of the runways? Was the helicopter on an established helicopter route? There's already been talk about, they're talking about the air traffic control transmissions. Let's hear what the mayor has to say.
People of Washington, 700,000 of us who are extremely sorry for the families who are experiencing loss tonight. And so we want you to know that we will continue to work with American Airlines to share information as frequently as possible and make sure that we're getting accurate information out to the public. But my sorrow for all of the people and crew on the plane and our military personnel on the helicopter is very deep. I do want to turn to Jack Potter, who is the CEO of our Airports Authority, responsible for Reagan National Airport and Dulles International Airport, to talk to you about how the airport responded and what we're looking, what's going to happen next.
Good evening. As was said, I'm Jack Potter, the President and CEO of the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. Thank you all for being here tonight and under these very, very grim circumstances. First of all, I want to let you know that we're providing support to all the families who are involved. American Airlines has established a phone number for them to reach out. That's been published, but let me repeat it. It's 1-800-679-8215. So families of folks that were on the plane are asked to contact them. We did have folks who were at the airport to pick up loved ones. And so American has set up a center in their in their lounge at the north end of the airport. And we've directed the families there. And there are folks there counselors there to work with the families. We did have aircraft that were in the air. They were diverted to Dulles Airport, some 19 aircraft. We had personnel, United and others had personnel. We want to thank WMATA for extending their hours on the Metro to make sure that those folks were accommodated. Right now, as was said earlier by the chief, we're in a rescue mode. We will continue in that rescue mode. I want to thank all of the mutual aid responders, all the counties, the district, folks from Maryland and Virginia.
Okay, he doesn't have any information either. It's just, everyone who has these positions, they want to show up. You got to show up. You got to say something. It doesn't appear that he has any extra information. He just kind of putting out information that's already been put out. If you are in that area, if you do have loved ones that you believe were on that flight, they did have the 800 number. Probably just go online. I'm pretty sure there are tons of resources for you there at the airport. And you're just gonna have to be patient. Again, it looks like an American Airlines regional jet has collided with an Army Blackhawk helicopter. And it looks like it was on what we call short final approach, but we would call it short final. And the wreckage, it appears, for both aircraft have landed in the Potomac, and there's a rescue operation ongoing. That's pretty much all we have right now. And Brother Vaughn, yeah, I'm definitely gonna stay on top of this as much as I can, bro. Once my daughter goes to school tomorrow, I'm sure I'll be, listening and jumping on. I normally go live on Mondays and Thursdays. So today now, the live might be following up on this. It's going to be plenty of information out there, and definitely folks are going to want to know how this sort of thing can happen. And I just want to listen to the experts they have, and I can give my little 2 cents. And if I hear something that's kind of not quite right or off a little bit, I can just throw my 2 cents in there. But the thing that I want to know is, what was the Blackhawk doing? Was the Blackhawk on final approach for a runway, or was the Blackhawk transitioning, which means he was just going to fly past the airport, not landing at the airport? And if he was transitioning, was he on an established helicopter route, which I'm sure they have? I'm curious as to that, especially when you hear terms like, do you see the aircraft? Do you see the traffic pass behind the traffic? That transmission would definitely be on a transition route. However, if the pilot was flying visual flight rules, which he could have been, which I doubt, but he could have been, it doesn't necessarily mean he was IFR, like on instruments. And if their flight's path were conversion, hey, slow down to pass behind. But I don't think that was the case. I think if he was told to pass behind an aircraft, that maybe he was on a route. I don't know. And we won't know until more information comes out. So appreciate you guys rocking out with me. the mayor is trying to answer questions, but she doesn't have the answers right now. No one does. It's the reporters like to ask the same question 15 different ways. That she just doesn't have the information. They're talking about rescue efforts and how they handling the water and the cold and who responded and all that stuff. So I'm just gonna leave it there, guys. Again, this was a terrible tragedy. And whenever we do these special reports, I never play the intro or outro. I don't do any sound effects, and I just kind of do that as respect for those affected. We don't need to hear the funny sound effects and all that. We don't need to see the intro and the outro. So that's why I haven't played anything, guys. Appreciate y'all, man. Brother Vaughn, I really appreciate you, bros. Good to see you. I'm glad you're around. And I'm definitely gonna stop. I'm gonna stay on top of this as best I can. Brother O Joe, G Complex, everybody who's here, Mandrell, appreciate y'all coming through, supporting. This is Shaw. Appreciate you, brother Michael. Everyone who was here. Brother Mark is my favorite. Devil Dog was in the building as well. Brother Tommy jumped on for a hot second. We have brother Viper J, who brother J. I mean, he was happy. He got his Detroit Lions went pretty far. But hey, this is all we have for now, man. This is horrible. But we're gonna get to the bottom of it. We're gonna find out, what's what tomorrow or later on today. It's already 1 a.m. here on the East Coast. So you guys take care, man. Appreciate you rocking with me, man. I'm DL Saint. This is I Really Want to Know podcast. I'll see y'all soon. Peace.